Hey, welcome back to the Marketing for Business podcast. Look, got a good one for you today. Digital influencers turned 10 in March. So what I decided to do is I get asked all the time, what books do you read? What books have you read? Can you share some of the things that you've learned over the years? So what I thought I'd do is I've chosen 10 books and then I've got 3 other bonus books, but I've chosen 10 books that I guess really shaped me as a business person, really shaped me as a marketer, and someone who loves marketing. Didn't get a degree, but I reckon if you go and look at my library inside my library there in the office, you'll see that I got a degree in another way. I'm an avid reader. I didn't grow up wanting to read. I was like at school, I wasn't the best student. I was probably a C student. I struggled to read the books that they told us to read at school, the likes of Shakespeare and that type of stuff. Didn't really understand it. But over the years, I realized, learning to read, and I think one of the biggest things happened in my life. I was actually in London. I was at a bookstore in Croydon, and we were going over to Spain, and my boss, he said, look, there's not much to do there. I've got a pool and that stuff, so we need to get some books to read. And I was just floundering. We were in the library, and I was floundering. No, it's not in the library, in a bookstore, and I was floundering. And I didn't know what to do. I remember he came up to me, he said something really profound. He said, Scott, you can choose whatever book you want to read. And up until that point, I was told what to read. And you're probably like me, if you're a C-grade student, you know this feeling, eh? Like we were told to read stuff and none of it really resonated with me whatsoever. So anyway, he said, hey, you can read whatever you want to read. And bizarrely, I read this book, and it was a basketball book, and I wasn't really into basketball, but all my mates were, and the title of this book was As Bad As You Want to Be, and it was by a guy called Dennis Rodman, and he was one of the Chicago Bulls. He's the guy with the colored hair, the big nose ring, etc., and it was just a fantastic read. It lit my fire for reading, for learning, so much so I don't know how many books I've read now, but it's in the thousands. So anyway, here's my top 10 books that I've read to actually help me in our business. Business I started with just me, and then have grown it now to a team of 20-something, and into a multiple million-dollar agency, digital marketing agency. And the books and the learnings have played a real big part in that. And I see books as an opportunity to be mentored. So what I've done is I've written some notes on each of these books too, and I've also written, a bit of an example and some learnings that I've really learned from this book. So the first book is A Billionaire in Training. It's by a guy called Bradley J. Sugars. He's an Australian guy, lives in America. I've been lucky enough to meet Brad a few times now. I actually helped bring him to New Zealand a few years ago. This is a great book. One of my first books I ever read. I think I saw Brad well into the 90s. In early 90s, and he said 2 key things for me, and one was, what anyone else ever thinks of you is none of your business. I just thought that was a fascinating take on something, and it's really held me in good stead. And the other one was, never argue with an idiot because you just make 2. And for me personally, I laugh when people, you see people arguing online or arguing, because there's no point arguing because you just make 2. You never argue with an idiot because you just make 2. So a couple of things I learned from this book early on, Billionaire in Training. Wealth creation is it's not just about earning money. It's about building, growing, and eventually owning valuable assets. I think as a business owner, that's something you want to be striving for. What are the assets you're building inside your business? Another point I learned there was business owners should think beyond the day-to-day operations. And this is something Brad really, I got inside my head, and start building companies that scale and sell. You want to actually have a business, and I think Brad says it best, a profitable enterprise that works without you inside that book. And it's a really formulaic book. And look, I think in 2026, I put some, some enterprise value matters more than ever, building something that works beyond you. And that's definitely something I'm creating here. It's something that I'm building up, and it's going to be here longer than me, and I think that's exciting. So a lot of time, and I put an example here. A lot of time, a founder relies heavily, especially when it comes to marketing, on them making all the decisions when it comes to marketing. But as you start to build a repeatable marketing system and document the campaigns and help you grow, it actually grows without you being involved in every detail. And I think a big marketing lesson you get from this book is great marketing helps businesses build assets, not just short-term attention. And you would hear me say this all the time about marketing. Design your marketing strategy to pick the tactics to produce the results you want. And this is what this book here talks about from a business systems perspective, but also from a marketing perspective. So Billionaire in Training, Brad's got so many good books out, but that was one of the first ones I read. And yeah, if you ever find yourself arguing with an idiot, just remember, you're making two of them. The next book this is a beauty. Michael Masterson, Ready, Fire, Aim. And people will laugh at this title because it's a lot like who I am. Ready, Fire, Aim. What a great book. How to go to 0 to 100 million in no time flat. Look, I'm nowhere near 100 million at the moment, but we're definitely growing, and we're growing in a way that this book has outlines in this book. He talks about the stages of business. But what I love about Ready, Fire, Aim, and this is what I guess that's helped me grow, is don't wait for perfect conditions. Get into the market, get feedback, and improve as you go. I think that's a really, really good thing. Lots of people I find are waiting for the perfect moment. They're waiting to get started. This book tells you, just get ready, fire, and then aim. The different stages of business require, and this is a really, really good key takeaway, different stages of business require different leadership and different growth strategies. So what got you to where you are necessarily isn't going to get to you to where you want to be. So stop using startup thinking when you start scaling your business. This is a really good one for us because at the moment we're starting to really grow, and now I'm looking at acquisition. What else could we buy? What other agencies could we buy to actually help us grow? And a good example I've put in here is a business spends months trying to perfect the new offer before launching it. Instead, you just launch something simple. Get a what do we call a minimal viable product up and running. Run some ads to it. Test the response. Start listening to what people are saying. Start talking to people. One of the greatest things I ever learned was to build an order form and go out there and start talking to people about it. Because you'll start refining your message. You'll start learning what people actually want, and what they'll buy, and so you start learning. So the marketing lesson here is, launch, learn, improve. Great book. It's quite a big book. It's definitely quite a big book. It's quite a heavy book. Michael Masterson himself, massive direct response marketer, has built some huge businesses in the space. So yeah, really worth a read. But it's not one you're going to read in a night. You're actually, I think I've read this 3 or 4 times. I'm still learning from it. Have the audiobook, etc. The next one is the 10x rule. The 10x rule by Uncle G, Grant Cardone himself. I read this at a time when my business needed it, and that needed it from my perspective, from my focus. I needed to think bigger. This is a great book, and look, love him or loathe him, the Uncle G has written a great book here. Look, one thing you learn if you own a business, and if you're starting a business, you're going to learn this. Growth requires more action, more consistency, more resilience, more money than time, and more time than most business owners first expect. And if you're in a business, you know this to be true. And he talks about this in this book. He talks about setting targets, and this was a good one for me. Setting targets and forcing myself to think bigger and stronger on execution, and lifting yourself to higher standards across your sales and marketing and your leadership. And look, in 2026, I believe the businesses that win will be the ones that act fast. I think this is the year. No, I don't think. I know this is the year for action. So act fast, follow up harder, keep showing up more than others do. Others will go quiet, especially in times we're having right now. There's so much stuff going on in the world. People will use this as an excuse to go quiet. Not you, not in the 10x rule. If you really need to rocket up what you're doing, the 10x rule is a great start. Because here's the thing. Most businesses might post, once a week, twice a week, and wonder why their leads are slow, right? Instead of that, you want to 10x it. 10x your visibility. Go from doing can, do daily short form videos, do this type of stuff, podcasts, cut it up, weekly email, testing more ads, more follow-up, more customer stories, and more sales activities. Look, and the lesson here is most businesses are under marketing, not over marketing. And that can be a hard one because everyone sometimes will say to me, oh, but aren't we doing too much? And I'm just saying, no, you're not. You're not actually doing too much. You want to have consistency message, frequency of reach to become relevant and become relevant by doing that, and use, the 10X rule to really help you grow your business. This is a great book. Uncle G, he's got a heap of other books. Sell or Be Sold is another one I'd read as well. Right, I'll switch gears for a little bit. This book is by Harv Eker. It's called The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Think rich, get rich. Think rich to get rich. Look, I always think some of these books have corny, really corny titles and stuff. But at the end of the day, this is a good book. This is a great book on money, and it's a great book on mindset from a business owner's perspective. Harv Eker failed in business, and then he realized why he failed. He got some great mentoring, and he realized he needed to fix this inside here when it comes to his money thermostat. And he talks about his money thermostat in this book. If you're stuck at any stage of your business when it comes to your financial understandings or financial beings, go get this book, read this book, go get the audio book, and devour this book. There's 3 things I want you to take away from this book. This is something I had to work on early on when I started Digital Influence. And it was your beliefs about money influence how you earn, spend, price, invest, and lead. I'll read that again because it's so important. Your beliefs about money influence how you earn, spend, price, invest, and lead. It's your beliefs, and I look. I know that can be hard and confronting for people to hear, but there's some beliefs that you have about money that are holding you back from where you need to get to. And until you fix those beliefs, and this book could be a great place to start. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you can do. You'll get stuck in a treadmill. You get stuck in a hamster wheel. Ask me, because that's I was there. So then the next one is business growth, often requires upgrading your identity, not just the tactics. And I think he talks about this in this book, and it's like, what is the identity that you need to become to have, and then the actions that you need to take. And I think that's really, really important. And in 2026, to grow beyond, I think as a business owner, you need to think bigger. You need to price with more confidence, and you need to stop carrying your limiting beliefs with you and around you about wealth. So as a business owner, if you underprice your services, it's because you feel uncomfortable charging more. So one of the things I started to do when I read this book was I would get a sale, and the next time I'd get a sale, I'd increase the price. Okay, so the next quote I did, it was increase the price. And that allowed me to actually realize the value I was giving to the marketplace. I've actually taught this to a couple of agency owners since, and it's really helped them grow their business because of confidence. You really need to build that muscle, and this, in between your here and here is a muscle that you really need to work on. Look, you want to be a premium solution. You don't want to be a cheap option. And I think a lot of people default to that, and that's what happens in the marketplace. You don't have enough bandwidth to stay because you can't stay in business. So the marketing lesson here is, look, your mindset affects your marketing, your pricing, and how you show up boldly. So if you want to change that, I would suggest giving this book a whirl. It's a great read. The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by Harv Eker. It's a great audio book as well. Next is one of the books when you start growing a business. This is the book that you should get. When you start making sales, you start making money, this is the book you should get. And it's called Profit First by Michalowicz. One of the best books I've read. I actually, for me personally, I had to get the audiobook version of this because, as well. It really, really is a good book. So here's the thing. And this is a great take because Michael talks about why, profit shouldn't be taken intentionally. It shouldn't be taken intentionally, not treated as if it was a leftover. Sorry, he says profit should be taken intentionally, not treated as a leftover at the end of the month. When I started to read this, I started to go, right, I'm going to set my accounts up like he's talking about, and we're going to take a percentage for profit every time, 3 times a month. We're going to take a percentage of money for tax 3 times a month. We're going to have a trading account. We're going to have an owner's account. And really understanding, once you understand money and where money goes and where you want the money to flow, you start to control money. And, if you build a business around simple financial discipline, you make better decisions around spending it, around hiring, and around growth. And this is something I've really started to realize. When you have money working for you, you make better decisions. But also, when you gamify it and there's money in profit, there's money in tax, and you have a trading account, you make better decisions based off what's in that trading account. And look, in uncertain economic times, which definitely we're in, with a war raging potentially more and more each day, cash control and margin protection matters, and as much as top line revenue. Okay, so a company that keeps spending money, especially if you're spending money on random marketing, that's why you need to work with an agency without knowing what's working. You need to actually understand what's working in your marketing. You need to understand the leads that are coming in. You need to understand the sales that you're making, the return on investment you're making on your ad spend and on your marketing spend. Marketing should be intentional and profitable, not just expensive. And I think getting this book and understanding your numbers will really help you become a better business owner, but it'll actually help you become a better marketer as well. So great book, Profit First. Get the audio book as well. It's worth reading and then understanding and then setting up those systems. Probably my favorite private book from a investing point of view is this book by Scott Pape. It's called The Barefoot Investor. What a fascinating book. It's the only money guide you'll ever need. And to be fair, when it comes to personal stuff, this is a fantastic book because simplicity wins. And for me personally, I know simplicity wins for me. And this book helped me get out of debt, helped me become mortgage free. It helped me start to create it's pretty substantial investing portfolio and really understand and control my money. So what I love about this, simplicity wins. The clearer your money system, the more likely you are to stick to it. And he has a bucket system in this book that is so simple. Anyone can understand and implement. If you're in debt, get this book, do the exercises, do the hard work, set the accounts up, and trust the process. I'm living proof this works. Paid off my debt, paid off my mortgage, have a pretty substantial investment share portfolio now. Look, good habits with money create freedom. That's something I learned. Lowers the stress, improves your decision making, both in business and in life. Look, wherever you go, money's involved. So why not spend the time to get your money systems right? I've actually given this book to so many people that I love and respect, and they've gone out and implemented this. And I've had people here who work with me have gone out there and have implemented this and have gone from being in debt to having no debt to having cash to buying properties and stuff now. Like it's exciting when you understand. So look, my thing is for business owners, in 2026, you need to remain financially calm and not financially in chaos, especially when markets and technology and all those sort of stuff keeps rising. You need to have an understanding of what's going on and where your money is being played out, So because a lot of business owners, they feel overwhelmed by too many marketing tools or subscriptions or ideas, and sometimes you just need to simplify it into a basic system. One CRM, one email platform, one ad platform, one reporting dashboard. And in fact, actually, we're creating something here at Digital Influence called AI Assist, which wraps around a lot of that reporting, a lot of that email, and a lot of that CRM database, customer relation management. We're actually building that, and we're releasing it really, really soon, which is cool because we see that business owners need things more simple. So the marketing lesson is like simple systems create better consistency and less waste. And look, this book is a game changer. Trust me, if you're in debt, I challenge you, go get that book. Talk to me in 6 months' time, and if you haven't made any changes, I'll be able to see why, and we'll be able to work together to make it. I fully endorse that book purely because I was in debt. I was in mortgage and now have no debt, no mortgage, and have a substantial share portfolio and now building a property portfolio as well. The next one, advertising. Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz, the most expensive book in my library. I'm not going to tell you how much this book cost, but it costs more. I think it cost more than $300 or $400. I was given it. It was a gift. Very, very grateful for it. But you could say, I grew up and got my marketing degree by reading the greats. Eugene Schwartz is one of them. And this is a great book that I really learned a lot from, because great marketing works when you tap into the existing desire rather than trying to create a desire from scratch. And I'll give you a good example of that soon. Your message must match how aware and how sophisticated the market already is. And this book talks about that. It gives you some great examples inside this book. One of them, you really want to be entering in the conversation that the marketplace is already having. So that's a real skill to be able to do that. Look, I think in 2026, I know, sharpening your positioning, your messaging will beat louder in your advertising, right? The relevance is the real advantage. And you will hear me say this all the time. Consistency of message plus frequency of reach to become relevant. If your relevance is your real advantage, because if you show up and you are relevant to the people because your message is tapping into the desire of the market that it already has, you win. And his book, it's definitely it's an older book, but it looks at the buyer desire, the market sophistication, and the awareness levels. And I think, like a good example. So you're a roofing company, and look, you advertise quality roofing solutions. Well, that's great, but what about the shift in the message? Like, it's coming up to winter here in New Zealand. You need a roof repair before winter. That's entering a conversation that people might already be having. Have you had, are your windows watertight for winter? There's a whole bunch of things that people are starting to think about. They're out there in the garden on a Saturday, and they know it's getting colder. They can see the leaves. They can see that the leaves are starting to fall. Is it time to get gutter guard? There's a whole bunch of things that tap into what people are already thinking and already designing. So, hey, I'm not saying go out and read this book, because one, it's hard to find, but also hire a marketing agency that's already read it. We have, so hey, it's 2026. You're listening to this podcast and you've probably heard of AI. So here's what I want you to do. We've created a free playbook that'll actually help you with AI and help your business get recommended. So all you need to do is go to the show notes or the link that's in this video, and I'll send you this playbook for free. Another one, I wanted to put this in. This guy's written so many books. This is Magnetic Marketing. It's one of Dan Kennedy's first books. Probably the godfather, the goat of direct response marketing. When you see guys like Russell Brunson, you see like Alex Hormozi, Ryan Dice, all those guys, they come from this guy. There's this guy and a few others. This is where they came from. So he wrote a book called Magnetic Marketing. He created a movement, I would say, when it comes to understanding marketing and direct response. He's definitely one of the greats, along with Gary Halbert, Drayden Bird. There's a real Gary Bensavinga. There's a whole bunch of them. Clayton Magpiece, John Carlton. There really is. They're the guys I learned from. Marketing should attract the right people, not just broadcast to everyone. I saw an ad the other day for an accountancy firm here in Christchurch, and I was like, oh my God, you are trying to attract everyone, and it's just a static ad. It's going to be doing no good. Yeah, there's a few likes on it and stuff, but no business will be coming from that. It's vanilla, it's boring, and it's trying to reach everyone. Businesses grow faster when they create systems that bring in customers who pay, stay, and refer. Dan's massive on this. Pay, stay, and refer. He talks about this a lot in this book. I've read this book a few times now, and that message is loud and clear. In a crowded market, clear offers, direct response thinking, and measurable campaigns win rather more than vague branding activity. He's not a massive fan of brand. He's a direct response guy, and I was lucky enough to learn from him. But now I guess I've learned about brand as well. But he really talks how to attract the right customers with the right message using the right media. Example of this is a business runs a generic ad trying to reach everyone. This is a accountancy firm at the moment. They're running this ad. They're trying to reach everyone, and it's just vanilla. No one will be replying at any large amounts. Instead, they could create a specific offer for a specific audience, and it could be calling out Christchurch business owners over a certain amount of people, over a certain amount of revenue, and they could be offering some sort of, accountancy audit or a review, or even something else that they know that they have. I saw some great stuff the other day around, from a company targeting people over a certain age. I think it's 50 because I'm getting the ad. The exact amount of money you need to retire at 50 and the years your money will last. And they had a free giveaway with that. And I thought that is the targeting, that is the kind of the marketing that you should be doing, not some generic ad on Meta going, hey, we're a Christchurch accountancy firm. No one cares. The more targeted the message, the more attractive your marketing, and your marketing becomes magnetic. And that's what Dan talks about in this book. Great read. Anything you want to read from Dan Kennedy, highly recommend. He is the GOAT, the godfather, and really has set the bar high for marketing. This book here, a small book, but what a book. I challenge you to read this book and not come up with, so many ideas from it. It's called 50 Secrets from the Science of Persuasion. It's written by Noah Goldstein, Steve J. Martin, and Robert Cialdini. Now, Robert Cialdini wrote a great book called Influence, and I would put that up really, really high on my books. And Persuasion is another book he wrote. But this book here combines the real scientific, and they just give you so many good examples inside this book. And it talks about how small changes, and I think this is what I love about reading this book, how small changes, you frame your idea, can make a big difference in how people respond. There's a great example of how they use it in a car wash and a coffee, and how just by framing and giving someone one more stamp on a card, but how you frame that can actually have a massive, response time, and how when people come back. Trust, timing, credibility, and social proof all influence decision making. They goes into real detail on how this is proven. Business owners who understand persuasion, communication better in sales, leadership, and hiring and marketing. If you really want to do that, read this book. So many good examples. One here, on a landing page, most people say contact us for more information. Well, you could improve it by adding, you could just on that one page, you can improve it by adding more social proof, some testimonials, a stronger call to action around client results, testimonials, and a clear reason to act, really make it. And look, like the small changes in wording and trust, these things called trust signals, can lift response just by having testimonials on one side of that landing page, having some video testimonials. So this book is I think it's a playbook. There's so many cool things inside this book. You start leaving with ideas when you're reading this book. It's one of my favorites. I read it and I kept reading it. Number 10, this is my last book in this series, and I've got 3 bonus books. One of the bonus books every business owner should read. This book is a book that I give and have been giving to clients for a long, long time. It was my book of the year twice, 2 years in a row. Building a StoryBrand by Donald Miller. What a playbook for understanding how to be the guide in the story. Look, customer engage with your message that is clear, and when they understand how you help solve their problem. I'll read that again because it's so important. Customers engage when your message is clear, when they understand how you solve their problem. And like a lot of those direct response books, like the Eugene Schwartz book, Breakthrough Advertising, Magnetic Marketing, they understand that. People care when they realize that you understand their problem better than they do. They will give you their money. They will want you to help solve their problem. This book talks about it and it teaches you how to position what you have and guide your customers through that process. Your brand positioning and this talks about in this book really, really well. Your brand position, your brand should your brand should position the customer as the hero and your business as the guide. And if you want to understand this, then watch the movie Star Wars, because the same framework inside this book is inside Star Wars. The guide, and the hero and the guide, and it's so cool to see. In 2026, clarity is currency, and I think that's one thing. I think if you look at brands around the world, one comes to mind really, really quickly, and that is Apple. They've made their things simple. and they won the game versus in a land of confusion. So in 2026, clarity is currency. A business that can explain their values simply will outperform the ones that confuse the market. And I learned a long, long time ago, a confused mind never buys. Brett McFall taught me that. He actually talks about this. If you're confused, your customers are confused, you lose. And the reason for it is because you have to burn more calories if you don't understand something. So when you burn more calories, you get distracted, you leave. And Donald talks about this in this book. And the example of that, and this is something you can go and look at. If your website talks too much about the company and not about the customer, you need to rewrite your website. A lot of websites have we on them, and you end up weing all over your potential customer. Rewrite your homepage to focus on the problem that you solve. It's like that ad about the accountancy firm. That's all about themselves. There's nothing there about who they help, and how they help them, and why life would be better if I chose to deal with you. Go and have a look at your website and then rewrite it, focus on the customer's problem, and then what is the solution that you offer, and then ask them to take the next step. Clearer messaging wins, and when a customer feels understood, you've really, really won. This is a great book for this. Go and get this book and read it. And I know I'm saying about this, all these books, but I give this book away to a lot of people, and I always get thanked for it because people really start to understand where and why they're losing. All right, 3 books to go. This one's real simple. It's called The Go-Giver. When I started BNI, which is Business Networking International, when I started my second business, before I started Digital Influence, I got this book. It's made an impact. The more you give, and the more value you create for others, the more value tends to follow back to your business. And this was what this book is about. It's about relationships. It's about generosity. It's about long-term, powerful commercial thinking. This book is simple to read, but it has a strong message. And in a world of automation, in a world of AI, human connection, contribution, and reputation are becoming even more valuable. So if you want an edge in the marketplace, go read The Go-Giver, because here's the thing. Generosity builds trust. And I think, what I've learned over time is people have an emotional bank account. Dr. Stephen Covey said this best, it's your job to deposit into their emotional bank account, because reciprocity will come back to you in larger and larger amounts. And this is what this book is talking about. It's talking about, really adding value to other people, because really generosity does build trust and it improves your marketing results. So go and read this book. It's a short book to read. You'll leave the world in a better place for reading that book. I can assure you of that. This book, number 12, game changer for our business, called Traction. Basically, Gino Wickman and his crew there at EOS have created a great book. It's a great system. It's what we run on. We run on EOS. We have probably one of the best coaches in the world for EOS, Mr. Lynn Askin, coaching us. Look, I read the book. We started to run EOS by ourselves. Now we have a coach. We have a worldwide coach doing it with us. A business grows better with everyone aligned on the vision, the priorities, the accountabilities, and the measurable outcomes. That is the guts of this book. Great operators build rhythm into the business through regular planning, reviews, and problem solving. As you go up and you have more people in your business, you need different thinking. What got you there is not going to get you to there. You need different thinking. You need an EOS operating system to up your operating system. As bigger your team gets, it's more important. The more important systems become, but without a vision, you're not going to execute it because growth will stall. This happens in marketing, okay? Marketing and definitely in busy companies that we see is always scattered. There's always lots of different stuff going on, and no one's really, everyone's doing a whole bunch of tactics, but no one's bringing it back to that strategy. This is what this book talks about as well. By implementing, you could just implement weekly marketing meetings, quarterly priorities, having a scorecard. I know this is what we do here. Look, good marketing gets stronger when there's rhythm. And look, work with an agency to help you get that rhythm, because then you get accountability and you get measurement. Make no mistake, if you're floundering a wee bit inside your business and there's more, you've got people, you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people, get this book, read it. There's an audio version of it, and start to understand how, by building leaders inside a business, you could grow your business. Great book. Right. Last book, every business owner should read this book. Every business owner should read this book if you're really, really serious about growing your business in 2026. I've given it to a few people now. It's by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hartley. It's basically who, not how. And it's basically the formula to achieve bigger goals and acceleration, through teamwork, right? This is a great book because it challenges you, especially if you're the person thinking, oh, it can only be done because of I can do it, right? This is a great book. I'm lucky I don't have that syndrome because I know other people can help me. But this really, growth accelerates when you stop asking, how do I do this? And you start asking, who can help me do this? This is a beautiful, beautiful thing. You know, when you start asking that question, who versus how? And this is the thesis of this book. Delegation's not a weakness. And I think that's a real, real key for New Zealand businesses to understand. Delegation is not a weakness. It's actually a multiplier for speed, for your energy and for your results. And I'm a living proof of this. I really understand that you should hire really good people, give them structure, give them guardrails, but get out of their way and let them perform and bring in other people to help them perform as well. I think the future belongs to business owners who can build capacity through people, partnerships, and leverage. I really, really believe that. And these guys, Dan Sullivan's a very, very smart man. He's written some other really cool books. Same with Benjamin Hardy. This is a great read, great examples inside this book. And I think, if you're a business owner and you're trying to do your own ads, you're trying to do your own content, you're trying to do your own website updates, SEO, emails, video creation. You need to find the right people and the right partners to help you execute faster and better. Trust me, there's so many better ways to do this. You need to ask the question, who, not how, and better marketing often starts with better support, and it's no longer a solo effort. So my challenge, if I could make you read one book, this is the book I'd make you read, because this is the book that will change your thinking to ask who, not how, because too many business owners get stuck in the how. How do I do this? How do I do this? You don't need to know how you do it. You need to ask who can help me do this. All right. I hope you've enjoyed that. That's my 13 books after the last 13 years. And the cool thing now is I'm reading different books. I'm reading different books on leadership, reading different books on scale. I'm getting involved in some other things in other bigger rooms because I want to learn. I want to grow my people. I want to be a leader who sets the vision and makes it big enough so other people can see themselves in that vision. So by the way, please share this podcast. Tag me in on a book that you've read. If you've read it, if you loved it, if you hated it, still tag me in. I'd love to have that conversation with you because look, life is for learning, and readers are leaders. I really, really believe that. I learned that, and I learned it the hard way because I didn't read books till I was 24, and I wish I'd read earlier, and I'm so grateful that my son does, and he's reading what he wants to read, versus what you're told to read. All right. Thank you for your time. Thanks for being part of the Marketing for Business podcast. Thanks for sharing it. I really do appreciate you sharing. It's not lost on me. Right, now I need you to go do something. Go and have some fun. Take some action. And remember, as always, celebrate your victories.